found in your bulletin. We give thanks, O God, for the richness and variety of animal life, for fish and birds, insects, reptiles, and mammals, for those who give us faithful companionship, joy when we are happy, and comfort when we are sad, for those animals who are our companions in daily life and work, and for those we depend on for food, may we learn to care for all living things. Amen. The children's story this morning is a reading, one that I found in a book that you may be familiar with. Soup or chicken soup for the souls of the cat and dog lovers.
Oh.
Okay. It's something like that anyway. Now this morning, of course, it's nice and warm and hot out there, and you can tell by the way you are dressed that there's no sign of snow, but this particular story has to do with snow. The mountain folk didn't know what to make of Dr. Gane Cannon at first. All they heard was that he was a stranger who had left a good practice in another state because he wanted to come up to an isolated community here in North Carolina mountains and build a hospital. They were used to traveling 25 miles over one-lane dirt roads to the nearest clinic at Brevard, but only when it was urgent, because even if they could get there in time, the cost of the question for families living on $3,000 to $4,000 a year was not available. Like most, they did not live anywhere but in the coves and the hollows of the area. Cannon knew all that when he moved up to Balsam Grove. But he was of mountain stock himself, and he cared about these people. Today, bouncing along in his black Jeep over the gravel road on his way home from his last call, he flicked on his windshield wipers as snow had started to fall from a darkening sky. He was glad he had no more calls to make that day. Walls were already raised for the Albert Schweitzer Memorial Hospital. Dr. Cannon had become fast friends with the great doctor. During the summer, he spent working with him at his hospital in Africa. The inspiration of Dr. Schweitzer kindled Cannon's desire for a similar ministry, if you will, to the people of Appalachia. He didn't worry about the patients not having money to pay. He asked them to bring stones for the walls of the hospital, or whatever they had at home, a home-cured ham from their smokehouse, or some fresh vegetables. Also, the snow now was beginning to fall a little faster. An old man walking on the side of the road raised one gnarled arthritic hand to hail Dr. Cannon, and he slowed the Jeep. "Evening, Doc. Did you know Annie Neal's little Angie is bad sick?" "Oh, I didn't know, Rufus." "Well, I just heard it at the store." "Well, why in heaven's name didn't her daddy come for me then?" "Well," said Rufus, "he's up taking care of his mother in Boswell this week. Think you can get over to see her, Angie? To see Angie, Doc?" "I'll give it a try, but if this snow gets much heavier, I can't promise I'll even see the turnoff to go up to their cabin." Dr. Cannon turned the Jeep around and headed back into the mountains. He wished the Neals had had a phone so he could at least call them and ask to put some sort of flag out where the road branched off to their cabin. But he thought he could recognize it anyway. He wasn't too worried about getting stuck. The new snow tires on the Jeep would take care of it. When he reached Jackson County, it was snowing harder, and he could not see any distance. The Jeep lurched through potholes and along rock-laden ruts on the dirt road. It was a one-lane highway and very narrow, with a drop of several hundred feet on the left. He found himself leaning toward the mountains, hugging the side of it with his Jeep. He thought of Angie, hoping he wasn't too late, and that he had everything in his bag that she might need. He felt his isolation in this white world of snowy, swirling snow. Where was the grove of twisted pines just before the Hughes turnout. Had he missed it? He wondered if he could get there tonight, or whether he'd end up freezing to death on the road. A faint sound came from behind the jeep. He heard it again and slowed to a stop. Through his open window came the barking of a dog, sharp, insistent. Then he said to himself, he would have known that dog anywhere. The underside, long reddish fringe. He was part coon, part golden retriever, the fur hanging down the underside of his snowy tail. It was Angie's dog. He was beside the road. So the doctor backed up the jeep a little more. The dog kept barking, coming toward him a few paces, and then making him follow along the trail amongst the trees. So Dr. Cannon got the jeep, turned, and recklessly turned it toward the slopes of the mountain, and he hoped that indeed this was the right road to the cabin. Gratefully, he felt the tires of his jeep settle into shallow ruts, and he drove on, the dog always keeping about 20 feet ahead. Then in a clearing, he saw the dark shape of the little house. What luck! The dog had led him right to it. He knocked, and after a minute, Angie's mother opened the door. Doc, I didn't hear you out there. Come in. The air in the room was filled with smoky scent and wood fire. Dr. Cannon knelt down beside a golden-haired child who lay in a pallet of quilts. He placed his stethoscope against her chest, eyes bright and face flushed. The little body almost burned his hand. Pneumonia. Had he reached her in time? He gave her a shot. She stirred and then was up on one elbow, trying to rise. Did you see him, Doc? She asked excitedly. He tried to ease her back on the pillow. See who, honey? My prince. Dr. Cannon glanced questioningly at her mother. She meant her dog Prince. It's just the fever talking, she said, and she clasped Angie's hand tenderly in hers. You were dreaming, dear. Now go to sleep. But Mama, Angie exclaimed, I saw him waving his tail as he trotted down the road up to the house here. And he came into the room over to my bed. He licked me, Mama, he did. Dr. Cannon smiled. He's a fine dog. Her mother put her finger up to her lips and gave Dr. Cannon a look of warning that kind of puzzled him. At the door of the cabin, Dr. Cannon handed Angie's mother a paper packet of pills for the sick little girl. Is she going to be all right, Doc? Yes, I think she's going to be okay, but you send for her if she takes a turn for the worse. By the way, as far as I'm concerned, Annie, that dog ought to be given a medal. I'd already missed the road and leads up here when I heard him barking. He led me all the way up to your cabin. I would have missed it, for sure, without him. The woman stared. Doc, Prince was killed by a car almost a month ago. Killed? Yes, down on the highway. The child took on so. Angie's pa carved a wooden plank in the shape of a grave rock for Prince and carved some words she wrote herself. Angie plumb loved that dog. Annie looked out the window and up at the sky. Snow stopped. Maybe you could see the marker. The grave is at the edge of the woods where you turn into our place. She paused. Doc, you don't think it really could have been Prince? She asked quietly. But he was the only dog I ever saw all the way up here, and there's not another house for 5 miles. I don't know. Well, however she got here, I want to thank you, Doc. She thrust a jug of apple cider into his arms. Take this for now, and I'm aiming to see you get some river stones for your hospital. Though he was eager to get off the mountain before dark, he saw the marker and could not help stopping the car and taking a look at this makeshift memorial to the dog. It stood beneath a tall pine. Leaving the motor running, the doctor got out, plodded through the snow, untied the bandana around his neck and flicked white flakes from the face of the board. The words he read were crudely carved. Prince, Angie's dog, always.